we have the Director of Sales, Carles Roca from Beyond.
Thank you, Simon. Hello, good afternoon. So we're here to talk about revenue management. That's fun, right? So that's what we do best at Beyond. For those of you that don't know Beyond, we are a revenue management platform specialized in the short-term rental industry. So we help you make more money. So before we start, I would like you to show hands who in this room had a phenomenal summer revenue-wise. Please don't be shy. Okay. Okay, I see many of you. So in fact, we've seen very, very strong numbers across Europe in terms of revenue and occupancy, basically everywhere but the UK. So I can see, and I'm very happy to see these strong numbers. So probably you're thinking, so why are we talking about revenue, right? Everything is going well. Okay, so next question. I would like you to show hands, those of you that feel that they left some money on the table, or maybe that they work their revenue management teams too hard. Okay. Okay, fair. So that's some of you. And finally, I would like to know here who thinks that the next few months are going to get tighter. Is it going to get a bit complicated? Yes? Okay. Okay, cool. So we will see that, we will discover that during today's presentation. So let's kick it off. They told me I need to be focusing this way. So that's the brief that we were given by our friends at Avantio, right? And that's what we're going to be covering today. So the first one, what are 3 strategies that you would use to manage and control revenue? So that's number 1. Number 2, what are 3 main mistakes to avoid in revenue management? And number 3, is reservation management and revenue management the same? Okay? So we're going to start by the last one. Is reservation management and revenue management the same? So it feels that this is a super hot topic nowadays. We've been talking about it a lot. It's a real trend. So I would like to create a little debate and see what you all think about this very hot topic. So I have a few questions for you. It's not working. Is this the first one? Okay, cool. So number 1, is reservation management and revenue management the same? Who thinks yes? No one? Okay. Who thinks no? Okay, cool. So most of you think no. Oh. Then my next question is, pick your favorite of these 3. So the first one would be, in a given month, making 100K revenue and having an average length of stay of 1.5 days. The second one would be making 80K and having an average length of stay of 3 days. And the last one would be making 60K and having an average length of stay of 7 days. It's a tricky one. I'm hoping to see a variety of different answers here, but who likes number 1? Who wants to make the most money, no matter length of stay? No one. Maybe one person. Okay. Next one. Who would like to make 80K with a medium-sized average length of stay? Okay. I see at least 20 people. And last one, who prefers least revenue but longer bookings? There's also at least 10 of you voting for that one. Okay, so as you see, disparity of opinions here. And the last one, how do you incentivize your revenue management team? So do you incentivize them using a KPI of revenue? Do you incentivize them using revenue and profit? Incentives? No. What is that? Revenue management team, what is that? I like to add a little drama, if you can see that. But who votes for the first one? Revenue. They are incentivized by revenue. The more revenue, the better. Okay? One person in the room. Revenue and profit. Simon is voting for that, and a few others. Incentives? There's no incentives in our company. No one? Okay, very generous audience here. And revenue management team, we don't have that. We do everything ourselves. I think that's the most common case. So in reality, takeaways, you're right. I think most of you think that revenue management and reservation management is not the same, and you're right. Reservation management incorporates operational and cost considerations that have a huge impact in the bottom line of your company. So I feel that with costs going up, with inflations, I think looking at both sides of the equation is more and more important nowadays. So we will continue to talk about this in the next 2 slides, and if you want to engage in conversations, please also come to our booth, and we can continue to talk about this. But now we will jump in 3 common mistakes in revenue management. So we've been in the market for 9 years. We work with hundreds of partners worldwide, and we manage more than 500 million listings. So we've seen basically everything under the sun. I feel every property management manager follows a different path. They have different journey, but I think there are some common mistakes that we all make and that we all can learn from. So the first mistake is no tech in my business. So imagine, we've been in the market for a long time. We're very familiar with the trends. We know our concept very well. We know the seasonality. We know the events that happen in the market, and we feel that I know everything that I need to know, right? So this is one edge of the spectrum, using no technology. On the other side, we have the opposite, so only tech. So only tech means we've paid some good money for incorporating a tool, and we basically follow religiously every recommendation that we get from that tool, sometimes even living in autopilot, right? So, not taking care of revenue. And this is definitely something that we don't advise. So revenue is an important enough category of your business to take care of it. So the complication here, and that's a hard thing to do, but it's finding the right balance between tech and the human aspect of the business. And sometimes there's also a third mistake, which is panicking. And I'm sure some of you can really feel that this has happened with you, but sometimes you have the right technology, you have the right experience, you set some prices, but booking pace is not as you would like, and then you panic and you decide to change everything. So this is something that we don't advise either, and that we shouldn't do. Someone really feels like this has happened here. So now let me show you, this is the daily ADR trends that we see in EMEA. So you can see a comparison here between 21 it's in light blue, and 22 in darker blue. So you can see here that for most of the year, we've seen 2022 being at a higher level than 2021, especially at the beginning of the year, and also as we approach the end of the year, with the only exception of a few days here in the summer. So even in the summer, if we could consider all the summer season, we've seen an increase of 5% in rep PAN in 2022 compared to 2021. So that's interesting data, but what I like to highlight here is these 2 spots that you see here. So the first being the 7th of April. So we saw an increase of 70% year over year in ADR. And then the next one is 16th of September, where we saw a decrease in 15% year over year. So this is almost impossible to know beforehand or to predict without the right technology and the right data. So we've made the calculation, and for a human, for any of you, to be able to set the right pricing for one listing for one day, even if you had access to all the data aggregator possible, you would still take 1.5 days to set this price. So now imagine setting the price for all your portfolio for all days. So just make your calculations. And when talking about panicking, this is a slide that I want to show you about length of stay. Last-minute discounts. So here you can see the percentage of last-minute discounts. That's where we've seen the cities where we've seen the highest percentage of last-minute discounts, which is a proxy for last-minute bookings, right? So you can see here that places like Cannes experience almost 60% of last-minute discounts. Logroño in Spain, super high at 65%, or basically every city in the United Kingdom also experience a very high level of last-minute discounts in their bookings. So what are the takeaways? I need to go back. So what are the... This is complicated. Takeaways. Number one, rely on technology for data aggregation, automation, and optimization. Let's agree, it's better and faster than us humans. Number two, the best recipe for revenue management is a combination of people and tech. So you can outsource both, but you need both. And finally, keep calm and carry on. So I think it's important you define your risk parameters, educate your owners, super important one, right? So we don't need to panic just based on what we believe that the owner will react, and do not swerve in panic. So we're going to cover now 3 strategies that we recommend for you. But before we do that, I wanted to provide some context. And I believe some trends that we're seeing in the market, I believe that's what you expect from Beyond. So let's start talking about ADR. So that's the ADR that we're seeing in EMEA for Q4. So that's aggregated for all the markets. So as you can see here, actually, the legend is incorrect. So the red line that you see here is actually 2022 instead of 2021. Thanks God. So that's the case. But you see that the numbers are actually higher for most of the days. So we have some good expectations for Q4 in terms of ADR. When we talk about occupancy, though, and that's the ADRs that we're currently setting, so all your expectations is high. Let's see if the market is also thinking the same. And what we see here is that there's some disparity between what we all believe, so we're setting the ADRs high because we believe that there will be demand and that we're in a strong position for exiting a strong summer, which makes complete sense. But then we look at occupancy, and we see very, very similar trend of occupancy between 21 and 22. So that's telling me that probably we need to make some pricing adjustments because occupancy during COVID periods shouldn't be the same as occupancy this year. So we should definitely see the blue line, 2022, in a much higher level than 2021. But so far, it's not happening because prices are being set $30 above what we saw last year. So you see that occupancy here is higher for most of 2021, with the exception of Christmas, and I think that's it. I also have the same slides for Spain, thinking that maybe some of you would like to see that. So that's Spain ADRs Slight different trend here, and we see more disparity between 21 and 22. So it's not so clear the difference of ADRs, depending on the season is higher or lower. And then that's the occupancy for Spain, again following a very similar trend as the one we've seen in the overall region of EMEA. So what are the Q4 themes? What do we need to care about? What do we need to look at? So the first one is change is coming. So as mentioned, it won't be the same as summer, but it's different for each of you, depending on your portfolio and depending on your location. So I think there are some considerations that need to happen here. The second one, occupancy and demand is relatively stable. So pricing optimization is possible, right? Sometimes it's hard for us to accept that we might need to lower the price a little bit, but I think that's what data is telling us in most of the markets. And final one, takeaways, stay close and responsive, leverage last-minute discounts when appropriate. That's a very useful tool that we can all use this season to have a splendid Q4, as good potentially as Q3. But now let's talk about the 3 areas to look to beyond Red-Band. So we've been talking a lot about revenue management, but there's more than that, and we're going to talk about some different strategies that you can use to maximize your revenue and have a very profitable business. So the number one, it's related to channel optimization. So here in this graph, you can see the channel mix in EMEA for 2022, right? Different months from January to September. You can see how the cake was shared in terms of bookings in EMEA. So on the top, you see direct bookings that actually had their highest level in June and July. And then you can see how the other OTAs, VRBO, Booking.com, Airbnb, and then another bucket that's basically the rest. But you can see how they have been evolving and performing in EMEA. So knowing this information and having access to this information is key. We need to go back. I'm trying as hard as I can, I promise. Okay. So make sure that you have access to this data, not only as an aggregated of the market, but also for your portfolio. We need to know if your bookings are shifting from one channel to the other. That's extremely important and will provide you with a lot of relevant information that is used when you are in high-performing revenue management strategy. Then test channel markups. So as there's opportunity, as there's high demand, or there's changes in fee structures, sometimes there's opportunity to, increase some markup or add some markups to channels that currently don't have it. So that can be a great opportunity to compensate for these costs. And finally, have a seasonal channel plan. So each season has different needs, will require to work harder on different channels. So sometimes you might need to run some promotions or boost in certain OTAs, or to maybe just invest a little bit more in marketing to promote your direct channels. The second one, supply growth. So I think that's also been a topic, and we've seen very high influx of new properties coming to the market. And I think in general, that's a very good sign. It means that we're growing. It means that we're healthy. It means that we're in the right place at the right time. But also, it's an opportunity that we need to take care of. So keep your enemies close. So I think it's important that you have tools that help you analyze your competitors, understand what they are doing, and be very, very close to their moves. So that's very, very important. Then second one, physical versus digital supply. So you need to know what listings are being added to the market, where they are located, who manages them, and also where they are being sold online. Super important. And then finally, set owner expectations. Communicating with owners often about changes in the supply that you're seeing can really help you to set expectations and ease some future conversations or some performance conversations that will happen in the future. And finally, owner communication. And that's also one of the recipes for success. I feel that, yes, new supply is being added to the market, but as well, the market is becoming more and more competitive. We all know that there's more PMs coming in the market. So to me, owner communication is one of the keys to success. Building a strong relationship, being very aligned with everything that happens in the business. That's very, very important. And we all have different types of owner, right? We have the owners that are more needy and emotional, that will call you with dramas. We have the owners that maybe they are more rational, they only care about ROIs. We have the owners that will freak out if you move the zebra statue of the living room. Some others that are more chill. So profiling these different segments of owners that you have and adapting your communication, it's super important for your team to be successful, right? So I think I encourage you, if you don't have it, to make different buckets of owners, understand what makes them different, how you need to approach them, and then cater your strategy based on this segmentation. Same happens with data. So I think defending with data, I'm sure you can think of different owners that require a different level of data, right? Some will really want to look at, on a monthly basis, a full report of everything that's happening to their listing, to their portfolio, and some others, they don't care that much. Once a year, contact is enough. They only care about how much money they're making. So I think that's also very important. The same level of data doesn't apply to everybody, right? That's not one size fits all. And finally, showcase your strategy. So I think data and having a strong revenue management strategy in place will allow you to have a very strong way and reason to acquire new owners. So that's definitely something that you should be leveraging, you should be communicating, and the market will definitely react positively to it. So that's it for today. Thank you very much. And now there's a round for Q&A.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Carlos, that was very informative. A lot of takeaways, very impressive. There's so many things you've pointed out already, so I think that was a great playbook on all the things we need to take into account when we look at our revenue management strategy, right? Yep. Let's talk about, I have a question. So there's so many ideas that you can bring in and how you can improve your strategy, showcase your strategy also to homeowners, et cetera, et cetera. From your experience, what are sort of the three biggest mistakes people who actually apply revenue management practices that they're making?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one mistake is, as mentioned, not looking enough at data. Believing that you have all the right tools, you have the knowledge, you've been in the market for a long time, and thinking that that's enough and that you don't need technology. I think that's definitely one. We talk about this as well, but the opposite side is true, right? If you don't care enough about the technology that you just implemented in your business and leave it in autopilot, I don't think that's the right thing to do, right? And we've seen that at Beyond in a variety of different times. So I think that's probably the two biggest mistakes that PMs make. Then I also understand that maybe we are not as mature in terms of revenue management as other industries. So we've seen revenue management in the airline industry, in hotels for a long, long time. And I think, when you've been operating in a business for a long time, then at some point you need to focus on optimization, right? So everything else you already do quite well. And now, instead of 100, if you can make 115, that's where you want to focus your effort, right? Because everything else is already covered. I think maybe in our industry, now we're getting to this point, So when I compare, especially Europe to the States, so in the States we've been there since 2013, and in there's a lot of appetite for tech, and I believe there's a quite high percentage of PMs using a dynamic pricing system. Here I believe it's around 50% or even lower than 50%. So I think there's a lot to do, but I think now is the right time, and the fact that there's so many of you interested about this, I think tells us the same story.
Absolutely. So let's get a little bit more practical as well, because you said something, and we heard that from Fausto as well, saying, we know what we do, we've been doing it for 20 years, but relying on data for the last 2 years is a bit of a challenge to think about what's happening in the future as well. But practically, first of all, where does a revenue manager, within the structure of an organization, of a company, or a property manager, where does the revenue manager belong in terms of hierarchy, in terms of where would you put a revenue manager within a vacation rental company?
Yeah, I think that depends a lot on the organization. To me, it's a role that should be reporting to ownership
directly to the CEO.
In mid-size companies. Of course, for very large property management firms, you have a full revenue management team and a head of revenue, so that's where it sits. But it's definitely a very important category. So
you wouldn't put it into finance?
I don't think so. In my opinion, there's more than that.
Very strategic.
Yeah, it comes a bit earlier in the process. When you start planning what channels you're going to use and how you're going to price, I think that's typically a bit earlier than when finance jumps in.
So if somebody's thinking about really going into revenue management and looking at resources, apart from hiring you, what would be the right profile of a person that you would look for? Like, what would you recommend property managers, the type of profile of revenue managers that you would recommend for them to look for?
That's a very good question. So the first thing I want to say is that, despite using our tool, you need to have someone behind the scenes that defines a strategy, right? So we are not substitutive to a revenue manager. So if I had to hire someone for my team, I would look at someone that's very data-driven, that's analytical. If they know the short-term rental industry better, but I don't think that's
not a must.
I don't think that's a must. And definitely, if they have experience in the airlines and hotel industry, I think that's the most mature revenue management sectors. I think that's also a great plus.
Okay. Any question from the floor? Does anybody have questions? There is a question over here. Can you just wait before the microphone gets to you, please?
Thank you. So you mentioned right at the beginning about how the summer season in Europe has been wonderful. I'm in the UK. It hasn't been quite as wonderful there. It's been okay, but it hasn't been quite what it was and what we expected. I've got some of my own thoughts on that, but I just wondered if there was any data-driven insights that you had on that.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I didn't show too much data about the UK in specific, but feel free to come to our booth and we can deep dive a little bit more into this. But what we saw is basically an ADR issue. So I think we saw ADRs being higher than what the market was accepting, and our recommendation to most of our PMs was you need to lower ADRs. I feel because we were just exiting COVID, and we had high expectations of a fast recovery. We wanted to compensate everything that we didn't do during the COVID season. And PMs in general, they didn't want to lower the ADRs or be more flexible with their revenue strategies. So I think that's one of the reasons. We were quite strict. I don't know if that's specifically your case. Also, we saw demand being a bit lower, so there was definitely an influx of people wanting to go to more southern countries. So Spain, Italy, France really benefited from it, but the UK didn't so much. So
yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Yep.
Excellent. Now we want to be mindful of time. We want to thank Carles Roca for a great presentation, for many takeaways. Thank you very much.